Discipline is training, not punishment. This is one of the most misunderstood ideas in personal growth. When people hear the word discipline, they often associate it with restriction, with suffering, with being hard on yourself. They imagine early mornings, grueling routines, and joyless sacrifices. But that's not what discipline is at its core. At its essence, discipline is the process of teaching your mind and body to act in alignment with your values, even when it's inconvenient. It's not about beating yourself up. It's about building yourself up. It's not about deprivation. It's about preparation. The word discipline comes from the same root as a disciple, which means student. So discipline is fundamentally about learning. It's the method by which you train yourself to grow, improve, and perform with consistency. It's how you take potential and turn it into progress. People often think they need motivation to move forward. They wait for the right mood, the right energy, the right inspiration. But discipline doesn't wait for conditions to be perfect. Discipline shows up regardless. It says, "This is who I want to become, so this is what I'll do, even if I don't feel like it today." When you see discipline as punishment, it feels heavy. It feels like something you have to endure. But when you see it as training, it becomes purposeful. Training is something you do because it makes you stronger. It's how athletes prepare for game day. It's how musicians prepare for concerts. It's how professionals prepare for high performance under pressure. They don't train because it's fun every day. They train because they understand that consistency beats intensity in the long run. And the same applies to mental discipline. You don't discipline your mind because it's weak. You discipline it because you want it to be strong. Left to its own devices, the mind will chase comfort, avoid difficulty, and lean toward distraction. That's not a flaw. That's just how it's wired for survival. But in a world full of constant noise, discipline becomes the tool that allows you to focus, to cut through the chaos, and to act with clarity. When your mind is disciplined, you can choose your response instead of reacting on impulse. You can keep moving forward even when your emotions are pulling you in another direction. The irony is, many people resist discipline because they think it limits their freedom. But in truth, the opposite is often the case. Discipline creates freedom. When you've trained yourself to follow through, to manage your time, to stay focused, you unlock the freedom to pursue what actually matters without being constantly derailed. You have more control over your days, more clarity in your decisions, and more capacity to handle pressure. You're not at the mercy of your moods, your cravings, or your distractions. You've created a solid foundation, and from there you can build anything. Mental discipline also builds self-trust. Every time you do what you said you'd do, even when it's inconvenient, you send a message to yourself, "I can count on me." That message, repeated daily, turns into confidence. Not the loud, surface-level kind, but the quiet, grounded kind that comes from knowing you've done the work. That's a confidence no one can give you and no one can take away. It's earned. People often admire those who seem calm under pressure, focused in chaos, and grounded in uncertainty. That doesn't come from luck or personality. It comes from mental training. From showing up day after day and building habits that strengthen your mind. It comes from choosing what's right over what's easy. Not once, but consistently. It comes from understanding that your mind is a tool, and like any tool, it needs sharpening. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. This statement challenges the way most people approach achievement. We live in a culture that glorifies goals. We're constantly told to set big goals, chase our dreams, shoot for the stars. And while having a clear goal can create direction, it's not what drives real, lasting success. What drives success is the system, the consistent, repeatable process you put in place to support that goal. Because when things get tough, when distractions come, when motivation disappears, it's not the goal that keeps you going, it's the system you've built. A goal is an outcome, a result, a destination. It gives you a sense of where you want to go, but it doesn't tell you how to get there. A system, on the other hand, is the daily practice that moves you forward. It's the behaviors, routines, structures, and rhythms you create to make progress automatic. And when done right, systems reduce the friction between intention and action. They don't depend on how you feel in the moment. They just work, because you've designed them to support the outcome you want. When people fail to achieve their goals, it's rarely because they didn't want it badly enough. It's usually because they didn't create a system that could carry them through the difficult days. Willpower runs out, inspiration fades, life gets in the way. But a well-designed system doesn't rely on any of those things. It creates space for discipline to take over. And discipline, not inspiration, is what keeps you consistent over time. Think of someone who wants to write a book. The goal is to finish a manuscript. But unless there's a system in place, like writing for an hour every morning, outlining chapters in advance, tracking word counts, there's no structure to support that goal. It becomes an abstract idea, something they hope to do someday, rather than something they're actively doing. But when that person commits to a system, progress becomes inevitable. Maybe they only write 300 words a day, but 300 words a day adds up. A goal without a system leads to frustration. A system without a goal still leads somewhere productive. Systems also reduce decision fatigue. When you build a system, you remove the need to constantly decide what to do next. You don't have to argue with yourself every day about whether to go to the gym or write that page or study for that test. It's already on the schedule. It's already built into your day. The less mental energy you spend deciding what to do, the more energy you have for doing it. That's the efficiency of a system at work. It streamlines your efforts and channels them in the right direction. Systems also shift your identity. When you follow a system consistently, you stop seeing yourself as someone who's trying to do something and start seeing yourself as someone who does it. A person who goes for a run every morning starts to identify as a runner. A person who writes every day becomes a writer. Identity change is one of the most powerful forms of transformation, and it happens through repetition. Systems are what create that repetition. There's also something deeply grounding about having a system. Life is unpredictable. Circumstances change. Emotions fluctuate. But a system is a constant. It gives you something to return to, something to lean on when things feel overwhelming. It becomes a kind of internal structure that you can depend on, even when everything around you feels unstable. Most people overestimate the importance of goals and underestimate the importance of systems. They think the secret to success lies in setting bigger targets, when in reality, it lies in refining the process. A goal might inspire you to get started, but a system is what keeps you going. A goal gives you the what, but a system gives you the how. And in the end, it's the how that makes the difference. Focus is a decision, not a feeling. Most people treat focus like something that happens to them. They believe it comes and goes based on how rested they are, how inspired they feel, or how quiet their environment is. But focus doesn't arrive on its own. It's not something you wait for. It's something you choose. It's an intentional act of ignoring everything else in service of what matters most right now. In a world full of endless options and constant distractions, focus has to be deliberate. You don't stumble into it, you commit to it. We often believe that if we could just feel a bit more motivated, a bit more organized, a bit more calm, then we could focus. But waiting for the right feeling is a trap. Focus doesn't show up after everything is perfect. It shows up when you decide to put your attention in one place, on purpose, even when everything around you competes for it. It's the ability to say no to the million things trying to pull you in a different direction, and say yes to one thing long enough to make meaningful progress. Focus requires clarity. You can't choose where to put your attention if you don't know what truly matters. People often jump from task to task, not because they're incapable of focusing, but because they haven't taken the time to define what's most important. When everything feels urgent, nothing is. So focus begins with prioritization. It starts with stepping back and asking, what's the one thing that if I do it well, makes everything else easier or unnecessary? That level of clarity cuts through the noise. It gives your mind a target. Once you know what to focus on, the challenge becomes maintaining that focus. This is where most people struggle, not because they lack discipline, but because they don't realize how often they let their attention be hijacked. Notifications, emails, background tabs, conversations, impulses, these tiny interruptions seem harmless, but each one fragments your attention just a little bit more. You don't just lose the time it takes to check your phone, you lose the momentum it takes to get back into deep work. Focus isn't just about what you choose to do. It's also about what you choose to ignore. Choosing focus is also choosing discomfort. True focus can feel boring. It lacks the instant reward of scrolling, the easy escape of multitasking, the stimulation of jumping to a new task. But that boredom is often a sign that you're entering the zone where deep, valuable work happens. And that zone is where the breakthroughs are. That's where growth lives. But to reach it, you have to resist the urge to constantly switch context. You have to be willing to sit with the discomfort long enough for your mind to settle into the task. Making focus a decision also means building habits around it. It means creating conditions that support attention. That could mean setting clear start and stop times for your work, designing your environment to reduce friction, using tools to block distractions, or breaking your work into focused intervals with planned breaks. These aren't just productivity hacks. They're signals to your brain that you're choosing to be present, that this moment has purpose. When done consistently, these small actions train your brain to associate certain cues with deep concentration. Focus is a decision you make again and again. And again. Not once a week, not once a day, but constantly. In every moment, your attention is either moving toward your goals or being pulled away from them. You can't always control what shows up around you, but you can control what you engage with. You can't stop every distraction from appearing, but you can decide whether or not to give it your energy. That's what makes focus powerful. It's not a passive state, it's an active choice that an undisciplined mind will always default to comfort. The brain is built to seek safety, pleasure, and efficiency. It wants to avoid pain, minimize effort, and retreat from uncertainty. Left untrained, the mind does what it's designed to do. Take the easy path. It will tell you to hit snooze instead of get up, to scroll instead of read, to delay instead of decide. It will choose the momentary relief of avoidance over the long-term benefit of discipline. And not because it's weak, but because it's untrained. Comfort is its natural state. Growth is not. Most people think laziness is a character flaw, but in reality, it's a habit of the untrained mind. When you haven't taught your mind to stay focused, to sit with discomfort, or to take purposeful action in the absence of motivation, it reverts to the path of least resistance. That path often looks like procrastination, distraction, indecision. But those are just symptoms. The root is a mind that hasn't learned to tolerate effort without a quick reward. The default of an undisciplined mind is to protect itself from friction. The problem is, all progress lives on the other side of that friction. Comfort feels good in the moment, but it's deceptive. It gives you a sense of relief now and robs you of momentum later. You don't feel the cost immediately. You feel it over time in missed opportunities, in eroded confidence, in the quiet frustration of knowing you're capable of more but never quite doing it. An undisciplined mind will always have a reason why now is not the right time, why you're too tired, too busy, too uncertain. It will always find justification for delay because delay is comfortable. The decision to act, to stretch, to push, that's uncomfortable. That requires resistance. And resistance is exactly what the undisciplined mind avoids. Training your mind starts with becoming aware of the internal voice that constantly negotiates with your potential. It's the voice that says, "You've done enough for today," when you know you haven't. It's the voice that says, "You can start tomorrow," when today is still available. It's subtle, it's persuasive, and it sounds reasonable. But reasonable is often the enemy of growth. Growth demands unreasonable consistency, unreasonable effort, and sometimes unreasonable belief in yourself. That belief doesn't come from feelings. It comes from repetition, doing the hard thing often enough that your mind starts to normalize it. Discipline teaches the mind to stop negotiating with comfort. It replaces the default impulse with a chosen response. Instead of asking how you feel, it asks what you committed to. Instead of seeking escape, it seeks alignment with your values, your vision, your goals. Over time, this training builds what looks like willpower, but it's really just practice. You don't overcome the pull of comfort in a single moment of strength. You out-train it. You create a new default by acting differently over and over until it becomes automatic. There's a huge difference between feeling like doing something and being trained to do it regardless. The undisciplined mind waits for inspiration. It craves ease. It chases novelty. But the disciplined mind understands that doing the work is non-negotiable. It doesn't argue with the plan. It doesn't need to feel perfect to show up. It just shows up again and again. That repetition rewires your response to discomfort. Instead of avoiding it, you expect it. Instead of retreating, you move toward it because you've learned that discomfort is part of the process. The most dangerous thing about comfort is how normal it can feel. It doesn't announce itself as a threat. It just slowly pulls you away from effort, from growth, from change. And unless you're paying attention, you won't even realize it's happening. You'll think you're resting when you're really avoiding. You'll think you're being patient when you're actually stalling. You'll think you're playing it safe when you're really playing small. The undisciplined mind isn't loud, it's quiet, soft, persuasive, and that's exactly why it needs to be trained. A disciplined mind is the foundation of emotional control. People often believe emotional control is about suppression, about pushing feelings down or pretending they don't exist. But that's not control, that's avoidance. Real control comes from awareness, from training your mind to respond rather than react. Emotions are signals, not instructions. They're meant to inform you, not dictate your behavior. And it's only when the mind is disciplined that you can observe those signals without becoming consumed by them. When your mind is undisciplined, emotions run the show. Run the show. A small trigger becomes a big reaction. A fleeting feeling becomes a permanent belief. You're angry, so you lash out. You're anxious, so you quit. You're uncomfortable, so you escape. Feels automatic, like you have no choice in the matter. But that's because the mind hasn't been trained to pause. The gap between feeling and action is non-existent. And in that gap is where maturity lives, where intentionality lives, where progress is possible. A disciplined mind creates space in that gap. Discipline doesn't make you emotionless. It makes you emotionally intelligent. It teaches you to notice what you're feeling without letting that feeling become the driver of your decisions. The disciplined mind hears the emotion, but doesn't surrender to it. It acknowledges the anger, but chooses patience. It recognizes the fear, but chooses courage. It feels the doubt, but chooses action. This is not denial, it's discernment. And that discernment is only possible when the mind has been trained to slow down, to stay grounded, to remain centered even when the emotions are loud. Emotional control isn't about being calm all the time. It's about choosing how you show up, regardless of how you feel. It's being able to stay in a difficult conversation without shutting down. It's keeping your standards high, even when motivation is low. It's doing what needs to be done, even when your internal world is chaotic. That level of stability comes from discipline, not personality. It's learned, it's practiced, it's built moment by moment, choice by choice. The disciplined mind is aware of triggers. It notices patterns. It knows when the mind starts to spiral, when assumptions start to take over, when the story you're telling yourself begins to drift from reality. It recognizes the moments when a pause is more powerful than a reaction. And because it's been trained, it can hold that pause. It can sit in discomfort without reaching for distraction or blame. That ability to sit with what is, without needing to fix it, run from it, or explain it away, is one of the clearest signs of emotional strength. Most people are not taught how to manage emotions. They're taught how to avoid them or react to them. They learn to bottle things up or explode, to numb out or act out. The disciplined mind does neither. It listens, reflects, and decides. It understands that not every thought deserves attention, and not every feeling demands a response. It's selective, not impulsive. And that selectivity is what protects your energy, your clarity, your sense of control. Discipline also builds confidence in your ability to handle pressure. Because emotional control is not about having the perfect conditions. It's about having inner stability when conditions are anything but perfect. When things go wrong, when people disappoint you, when plans fall apart, the disciplined mind doesn't collapse. It adapts. It doesn't pretend everything is fine. It simply chooses the most constructive response available. And that choice, made over and over again, becomes resilience. You can't control every situation. You can't stop emotions from rising. But you can train your mind to meet them with awareness and respond with intention. That's the power of discipline. It doesn't remove emotion. It refines it. It takes the raw energy of your emotional life and channels it into something useful, something grounded, something strong. The battle is won long before it begins. In your mind, Most people think winning happens in the moment, when the lights are bright, when the stakes are high, when everyone's watching. But by the time you get there, the outcome is already shaped. It's shaped by the preparation you've done, the mindset you've cultivated, and the mental reps you've put in when no one was watching. The real fight doesn't happen on the field, in the meeting, on the stage. It happens in the silence of early mornings, in the quiet decisions no one claps for, in the unseen hours where discipline is formed. Every day, your mind is either preparing you or preventing you. It's either conditioning you for pressure or allowing pressure to control you. If you wait until the challenge arrives to start building strength, it's too late. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your preparation. And preparation doesn't begin with what you do. It begins with what you believe. It begins with what you allow your mind to focus on, what thoughts you feed, what stories you repeat to yourself. Because the mind will follow the path you pave for it. And if that path is filled with doubt, hesitation, and fear, that's where it will lead you when things get hard. A disciplined mind doesn't just react to life, it prepares for it. It doesn't wait for the moment to test itself, it trains for the moment so deeply that when it comes, it feels familiar. The fear is still there, the uncertainty is still there. But the mind has already walked through it, already visualized it, already planned its response. That preparation becomes armor. It doesn't eliminate adversity, but it makes you ready for it. Not because you know exactly what will happen, but because you trust your ability to handle whatever does. Winning in your mind starts with your habits. It's what you choose to do when no one is watching. It's whether or not you keep your word to yourself. It's how you talk to yourself after a setback. It's how you show up on the days you don't feel like it. Each of those moments is a vote for who you're becoming. Each of those moments is a brick in the foundation. And when the storm hits, you don't need to scramble to build confidence. You just stand on the work you've already done. Mental preparation isn't glamorous, it's not loud. It doesn't post well on social media. It's quiet, it's consistent, it's repetitive. But that's what makes it powerful. It creates internal stability. And when you have internal stability, external chaos doesn't shake you the same way. You don't get thrown off course by criticism, or panic under pressure, or lose yourself in comparison. You've trained your mind to return to center. You've created a place inside that's steady, no matter what's happening outside. Most people look for an edge in talent, in tactics, in tools. But the sharpest edge is in your mind. It's the ability to stay calm when others fold, to stay focused when others get distracted, to keep showing up when others quit. That edge isn't built overnight, it's built daily. In the quiet, in the discipline, in the commitment to mental reps that no one else sees. It's built when you decide to think differently, to act intentionally, to reject the easy path in favor of the one that prepares you for pressure. If your mind breaks under pressure, it wasn't the pressure that caused it, it was the lack of preparation for it. High-stakes moments expose what's already there. They don't create it. That's why the real battle is internal. It's in how you manage your thoughts, how you direct your focus, how you respond to stress. It's whether or not you've done the mental work in advance so that when the moment comes, you don't have to rise to it. You're already at that level.